Hi everyone, it's Tamara here for the Sweet November Stamps Ghoulish Greetings YouTube Pop and Giveaway. All the details on how to enter the giveaway are listed in the description box below, and it's well worth entering as you'll receive the entire new release. I'm going to be using the new stamp set Pins and Needles for my card, so I will get going with some COPIC colouring first and then come in with the card making tutorial. grabbed out a piece of smooth white cardstock, and I'm just checking that it is just that little bit bigger than my stitch rectangle panel, just to make sure that I've got enough room to die cut that out. I'll be using my Distress Oxides today and my Dome Sponge applicators, and just working in circular motions. I'll be using the colours Twisted Citron, Peacock Feathers, Villainous Potion, and then finishing out with Black Soot. So I've also, as you can see, just sitting on the side there, because I am doing the whole panel ink blended, I've got a piece of scrap white printer paper, just so that I can cover up my fingers when I'm touching the panel, and that way you don't get any fingerprints ruining your beautiful blend. So I'm working between each colours separately, so initially with the Twisted Citron and the Peacock Feathers, and now I'll work between the Peacock Feathers and the Villainous Potion. So I'll pop all the Villainous Potion down and then bring that Peacock Feathers back in. And I do swap out that sponge later on because obviously it does get contaminated with that Villainous Potion. So we'll pop the Black Soot up the top and just work between that and the Villainous Potion until you've got a nice smooth blend. And then we'll work back down to our Peacock Feathers. So I'm just using that already contaminated brush or sponge with my Peacock Feathers and the Villainous Potion, and now I'll grab out a nice fresh one just to make sure we keep that bottom section of the Peacock Feathers nice and bright in comparison to where it joins up with the Villainous Potion. Now that panel's nice and dry, I've grabbed out my stitch rectangle die, and we'll just grab a little bit of tape to make sure it's taped in the correct spot once I run it through my die cutting machine. Just having a little bit of trouble finding the end of my washi tape, so found it in the end. Just making sure I've got a little bit of black showing up the top, and also that beautiful Twisted Citron down the bottom. And I lost the end again, so we'll get that taped down and I'll run that through the die cutting machine. So now we've got a perfect panel cut out with the exact amount of ink blending for each panel. And now I've just grabbed out just a nail file, and it just gets rid of any Furbies around the edges of your cardstock once you've done it through the die cutting machine. So now you've got nice smooth edges. So I had these stitching dies that I got from Kaiser Kraft, and I've pulled out this single stitching row that I thought matched in really well with the stitching that's on pins and needles. So I'm just going to run that over quite a number of times over my panel. I'll just show you a couple on screen, and then the rest I'll do off screen. So I'm just going to grab out my Sizzix Big Shot and just show you running through the first couple of runs through with this stitching die. So we'll pull that out and I'll show you just how beautiful that cuts those little stitches. We'll do another one just up the top, so just obviously lining it up to make sure that it runs through your machine without blocking it. And there's your other stitching. And now I've done all the rest off screen, and you can see all the beautiful little stitching lines over our entire panel. So now we have the perfect stitching to match in with beautiful pins and needles. Now I was wanting her to kind of be anchored on the front of the cardstock, so I've grabbed out two of these stitched rectangle dies, the smallest and the second smallest out of this pack, and just using my paper trim I'm just going to cut enough black cardstock to cut out two of these dies. Now I'm going to grab the smaller one because I wanted to make sure we could see the back panel with the ink blending and the stitching, so I thought just having some black frames will allow that to show through and just be somewhere where we can anchor pins and needles. So initially I thought about one, but it kind of still hides that ink blending, so I thought just offsetting two kind of gives you a funky frame look and gives pins and needles somewhere to sit where you can still see that beautiful ink blending and stitching underneath. Now I also wanted to add some other kind of stitching elements. So I had this nice kind of shiny black twine in my stash, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of wind that around the base of that card near the Twisted Citron and the lighter colors so that it shows through. So the best way I found to do it was just to secure it with some washi tape to the back of the card. Just wind out a little bit, and you can just wind this around the base of the card. So it kind of takes a little bit of fiddling to get it the way that you want, and I wanted, you know, the crossover to be on one side, and then I just keep on putting pieces of washi tape in place just to make sure that that holds that twine in place as you continue to twine around your card. So I'm just going up a little bit higher and going to do another 2 kind of crossing over, this time with the crossing happening to the left hand side of the card. So as I said, it is a little bit fiddly, but I really like the look of this, and you know, in the end, and once you're happy with it, it's really easy to secure that down with the washi tape, and it just kind of makes it much easier to hold that all in place. So I'll just get that final piece of washi tape attached, and now I'm going to grab out my 2 frames and just make sure I've got enough room for them to sit at the top. So I did need to move my twine pieces down to allow room for those 2 frames to sit. So I'm just working to make sure that they're crossing over where I want them, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and just trim off that excess twine. So now I wanted to match in my sentiment. Initially I had it black on white, but I wanted it to match in with my background panel. So I've just grabbed out the twisted Citron, and that way you can still see that sentiment through, and I'll just set that aside to dry. I've already cut and scored a black card base, and now I'm just going to attach our ink blended panel to the front. I'm just working carefully around those pieces of twine so that I don't move them when I'm putting the glue on, and then we'll just get that attached to the front of our card base. Now once that's attached, I'm just going to put it under like a very heavy book, because I just want to ensure that that adheres well where that twine is sitting as well. So now that ink's all dry, I've grabbed out my 2 frames, and I just want to line that up and make sure that I've got enough room for our sentiment to sit at the top before I glue everything down. So I'm just putting some glue on the back of the first frame, which is going to sit on the bottom, and just be very careful. You can see that I had a bit of glue squeeze out from that, and it can actually mark your ink blended panel, so just be wary of how much glue that you're putting on. I'm just going to grab out both pins and needles and also the sentiment, and just make sure that I've got enough room for everything to sit on there. So I am going to just tuck that second frame just down into underneath that twine. So just line that up and just offset that, and again just wiping off any excess glue that might come out, being very careful around that ink blending. Everything else I'm just going to pop up with some foam tape. So I've got some foam squares which I'll put on the back of my sentiment, and then I've got a roll of foam tape which I'll pop on the back of pins and needles. So I'm just going to kind of place a certain amount on top, bottom and middle to make sure that she's fully supported, and we'll get the release paper taken off. Just using my tweezers, I'm just going to line that up at the top, and then I've removed the release paper from the back of pins and needles, and we'll just get her lined up in the center of that frame. I've grabbed those 4 pins that I colored up earlier, and I'm just going to strategically place them around the scene so that they draw your eye to pins and needles. Just kind of tucking a couple behind the frames. You can just lift them up slightly. Once you're happy with the spots that they go, we'll just get some glue popped on those and attach them to the front. I find these being a little bit smaller, it's great using these tweezers to get everything attached. I do end up putting a little bit too much glue on this top one. I should have just kind of given it a quick wipe before popping on, and I did actually put a little bit of glue on my panel, but I just adjusted where that was going to sit, and that kind of covered up any mark that would have appeared on that panel, which was good. So we'll just get that final one attached. As you can see, I kind of dabbed off excess glue on that one. And I've grabbed out my glossy accents because I wanted to kind of put some shine, like a normal needles have those shiny ends. So I popped them on the end of each of those pins. And then also on her 2 button eyes, I thought I'd pop a bit of glossy accents on that as well. And now the glossy accents is all dry. This is the finished card project for this tutorial. Pins and Needles is so gorgeous, and I love how she comes with the sentiment and the extra needles in the set. She's just so fun to colour, and I think she's pretty versatile for both Halloween and also other projects. I do wish you all the best in the chance to win the entire new release from Sweet November Stamps. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see any future videos, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.